editor, purpleptsd.com, moving forward, which should be pretty exciting. So I'm psyched about that. But I also got a new webcam, which I'm horrified by, because it's a lot better than my last webcam, for those of you that have been here before. And it's making me realize that the doctors were correct when they told me that I was diagnosed with what scientists call ugly face. Sponsor for this week is McDonald's Liquor. They are on 34th Avenue in South Minneapolis, near Lake Nokomis. If you're familiar with that neck of the woods, it's kind of by the airport. They were the host of the event that we had with Mr. Chad Greenway and Grey Duck Vodka, who is another sponsor. That's an autographed bottle. There are still autographed bottles of Grey Duck in the store. That's the same price as just regular Grey Duck. So if you stop by McDonald's Liquor this week, you can pick up a 175 or a liter. But enough of that business. Let's get into the game. What's up, Danny? Man, coming live to us on Periscope, it looks like. The game starts, kickoff is in, 20 minutes, they say, even though it feels like maybe I'm crazy, but this season more than any other, they'll say, like, kickoff at 12:02, and then it'll be like 12:45, and nothing has happened. But maybe that's because I have Hulu, and I feel like Hulu is really far behind. I've also been unable to crack the DVR settings on Hulu. It's like, I'll save the Vikings game 6 different ways, and they'll just delete for some reason. Yeah, I agree with that game. It says you're the only one commenting, but I'll replace Remy with Grey Duck. It's autographed, man. Acknowledge me. I'm fancy. I'm friends with Chad Greenway. Friends. Anyway, this game is really interesting to me. I feel like the schedule gods kind of, it feels like the Vikings get the short end of the stick a lot of the time with this, in regards to scheduling. Like, their schedule's always really, really hard, even when they come off like a mediocre or bad season. The having the final 3 division games being at home, for example, is a good example of that. But playing the Eagles at home in this context, I think, is great. I mean, it would have been impossible for anyone to really foresee this, so I'm not saying it was like some Vikings fan in the scheduling office. But having like a bounce back game, especially for Cousins against the Giants, and then playing a good but not great Eagles team at home to build on that confidence that was established, I think is really important. This game's going to come down to Cousins. The Eagles obviously have a very stout rush defense, but they don't have the greatest secondary to begin with, and it's really banged up. So it's going to come down to Cousins. I think that the Eagles on defense are going to do a lot of what they've been doing, a lot of DB corner blitzes, zone blitzes, that sort of thing. Bring as much pressure as possible to Cousins. Charlie Casserly from NFL Network did a short video on that, and he showed some examples of what the Eagles had been doing, and it's confusing to linemen, and so it'll be interesting to see how some of these young guys will react to that on the up front for the Vikings. Sorry, my cat is being absolutely terrible. She's like knocking everything down. There she is. Oh, Marmar. And she has like a huge booger. I think she has a drug problem, to be completely honest. So hopefully they'll continue to do what they did last week with Cousins and move the pocket, get him out running around, because I have a strong feeling that Diggs is going to have a monster game if that's the case. And so, like I was saying, yeah, just building off of what Cousins did in the Giants game, which is extremely frustrating. I think I was referring to it and the season as a whole as frustrated optimism, at least this week. Cousins shows flashes of brilliance, and I know what the common refrain or response to that is. Yeah, he plays great against crappy teams, and then he's not good against teams above 500. Well, the Eagles are above 500 barely. I'm hoping that he can show, because I don't think it's that simple. I think that's a component of it, obviously, but I think that the Vikings, despite the fact that they've had him for 20 games now, 21, 22, are still finding what works, especially in the context of this the new wrinkles to the offense that Kubiak brought and Dennison brought. So getting him running around, I think, again, is going to be incredibly important. I think that the more time that they can create, the Vikings can create, as opposed to just having Cousins stand back there and take the pressure like they seem to be doing against the Bears, the more success that they'll have. Now, speaking of the Bears game, oh yeah, big time. I'm just reading comments. Keith, I agree with you. I had a question, and I'm going to pose it to Danny if you're still there, and Keith as well. We're doing a lot. We do a live chat for every game on VikingsTerritory.com and PurplePTSD.com. Somebody asked about over under 100 all-purpose yards, 120 all-purpose yards for Mr. Dalvin Cook, and I struggled to answer that. The obvious answer is under, right? Because of what the Eagles do with their front seven, especially. They're going to have their outside linebacker, making sure that Dalvin isn't getting any of his cutbacks, because he loves them cutbacks. I struggled with that because I have a feeling that he'll be heavily involved in the passing game as well, especially if they're doing a lot of those like zone and DB like blitzes. Having him as a dump off valve for Cousins, should that happen, because they're sneaky with it. So if you keep Cook as the dump off option, a la like Chester Taylor back in the day, like when Peterson was a rookie, he'd always run just like 2-3 yards in front of the offensive line and stand there and get a dump off pass, pick up a first down. It was almost every time, it felt like. They'll keep the Eagles honest if they're having Cook out there for that purpose, because he'll pick up a lot of yardage that way. So I struggled with it a little bit. I said the over because I'm a curmudgeon-y optimist. Oh, Sean said that? That is interesting. I usually see Sean's stuff against my will. I'm kidding. Obviously, Sean's the managing editor of Vikings Territory, my site, and we work together closely on a lot of stuff. If you're not following Sean, which I think most people are these days, he's blowing up. You should be. It's at Sean Borman NFL and at Sean Borman, I think. But yeah, it's going to come down to that, Keith. I think you're alluding to the same thing I am, which is Cousins, and that's kind of a microcosm for the season. I have a bunch of other notes that look like a crazy person wrote them because my pen wasn't working. If you pause it on that, please don't. You can peer into my soul. Defensively, I don't know. I'm not too worried. Jordan Howard has done well against the Vikings, but I feel like the Vikings, especially to start, I think they're starting the season defensively better than they have in recent years. They're kind of a slow starting defensive front, especially last year with all the new wrinkles that Zimmer tried to bring into it after Doug Peterson broke his brain in the NFC Championship game. I feel like he tried to create this perfect, like that scene from A Beautiful Mind, Zimmer has a shack behind his house with red yarn connecting everything. I cracked it, and it's just complete insanity. I think simplifying things and letting this defense just play is important, but I was attempting to tie something together. Calling a game like the Giants game as opposed to the Bears game defensively is going to be my other key to the game, because it's equally frustrating and not as frustrating to see how well Cousins can perform some weeks and then how badly he can play other times. Seeing some of the logic in the play calling, like blitzing bar, like just how amazing bar and omnipresent he felt in the Giants game. And then I know they didn't have a full week to prepare for Chase Daniels. They were attempting to formulate a game plan that would have kept Trubisky honest and in the pocket and standing up and beating them that way. And when he gets injured on the first drive, that goes out the window. Now, Chad Greenway was on my podcast, Morning Joe's, the week before last, and he said a lot of that stuff isn't the way you think it would be. Like, they don't go so far all in on a defensive strategy that it's hard to pivot to something else. It's a lot more reactionary to begin with than we might think it is, or movies make it seem. It's not necessarily like 3D chess, he said. It's more maybe Chinese checkers. But it would be great to see a continuation of the type of aggressive defensive play calling that the Vikings had last week. That's easy to say, and it's always great when aggressive play calling seems to work. And I understand that the Giants were, I don't even want to call them one-dimensional because the one dimension clearly wasn't working, but Saquon Barkley wasn't playing. They have a rookie playing quarterback. They're just struggling all around. They're not. I mean, I think they're on the right path, and Shermer's a good coach and whatever. But the Eagles, while not performing at the level that they were 2 seasons ago, aren't necessarily. They're a good team. Carson Wentz is a good quarterback. So on and so forth. Sean Jackson isn't playing. Jordan Howard is. I won't say he's had the Vikings number, but he's played well, and he knows what to expect against this Vikings defense, especially the front seven. So it would just be nice to see the Vikings continue to be aggressive, especially for Zimmer. The Vikings did beat the Eagles last year, but it would be great to see him just destroy Doug Peterson's offense a little bit. So the game's about to start here in 10 minutes. I'll let you guys have time to go smoke a cigarette, get a beer. If anyone wants this crappy cat, look at her. She's high right now. You have a problem, Marmar. People are sick of it, and they're worried about you. My prediction is 31-13 Vikings, despite all my heeing and hawing. I will be back at halftime and after the game. Like I mentioned, Kirby and I will be doing a show together during the week. We have yet to come up with a name, but it'll have a concept similar to PTI. Hopefully, we'll have graphics on the screen like here, and we'll debate certain topics. And then we'll be doing the pregame and the postgame as well for the network. So that's that. And also, Keith, I like your style. Oh, Vince, what's up, man? You like my new camera? It's pretty fancy, but it also makes me feel like I have a very asymmetrical face. Also, my eyebrows are extremely pointy. I look like a evil villain, like in a car. Like I should be curling my mustache and like tying up a girl on a railroad track somewhere, like 1930s cartoon. Anyway, this is a really strange end to this episode. Hopefully, at halftime we'll have some good news. If you're not already, hop over to VikingsTerritory.com or PurplePTSD.com. We are doing a live chat per usual. Vince, hopefully you're in the chat right now. I will be there in a second. But I'll be back at halftime. I will wash my face so it's not so reflective. I hate this new HD nonsense. My face was built for radio, let alone this HD nonsense all you teens are talking about. But yeah, thanks for checking out what is the last weekend of the smoke break for obvious reasons. Skol Vikes.